Hello, dear friends. Friday, December the 8th, 2023. How you doing today? As you can see, it's a sunny day out here. Just a little bit of clouds coming in, but it is a balmy 45 degrees. It's about 7 or 8 degrees Celsius, somewhere around there, and it is just a beautiful day. I don't know if you can see my breath in the cold, a tiny bit, but it really feels a lot warmer than what the thermostat is telling us. Wanted to give a quick review on this book that I'm reading. It's called Reframe Your Brain by Scott Adams. Now, I'm only going to be able to do part one because I'm only halfway through the book. I'm on page 104. But I thought I might as well start because I have not much else to talk about. So I've been reading through this book, and on what I've read so far, 100 pages, is very pragmatic, is very utilitarian. It's, how do I describe it? He is giving really solid ways to look at things a little differently. He calls them reframes. Instead of looking at something this way, try looking at it this way. And that's the theme of the book, is all these different ways to change the way we may be tempted to think of something, or may easily fall into looking at things a certain way. And Scott Adams suggests a different way to look at them, which is superior, which is more beneficial to the reader. So a very practical guidebook. It would be an excellent book of advice for younger people that are just getting on in the world, that want to protect themselves from perhaps feeling unsure, or maybe lacking confidence, maybe having struggles with self-esteem and so on. Forgive me, just having a sip of Java. And so I think it would be excellent for somebody in that case. I think it would help anybody at any stage of life, really. But I think it would be particularly helpful to the next generation to have this type of mentor speaking into their lives and telling them, well, I never really thought about it that way. And it forces the reader to look at things a little differently. So I think so far what I've read, these first 100 pages, is excellent. I will just point out a couple of things. On page 63, Scott Adams says, when I use my intellect to guide my writing, I write like a soulless professor, a professor without a soul. And that's kind of how he comes across through the whole book. He's very to the point. There's no fluff, there's no touchy-feely to it. It's just, this is a better way to do things, just a better way to look at things, face reality for what it is, very scientific, just this is it, bare bones. Don't get emotional about things, and he does right that way. I'm taking that out of context. He says, when I let my entire body experience the words, I juggle them, I can use my physical to pick up ones that with the best care. He's just talking about his style of writing, so he's giving that point. But that is very interesting that he mentions that he admits that he writes like a professor without a soul on page 63 of the book. That really, I had to agree with him there. And then I thought it was funny on page 78, he's talking about the temperature. He's used to, he doesn't like the cold temperature, and he's saying this is, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to be too cold for him. Whereas for me, anything above 32 is great, right? I'm used to it living up here in Canada, so it's funny the different perspective on what's cold and what's not. Like I said, today is a beautiful warm day, and it's about in that range. It's about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So that was, I thought that was kind of cute. Something else I wanted to mention, he does cover his bases, because he says on page 81, don't be surprised if a reframe works one day and then never again, or that a reframe that didn't work for you before starts feeling profound. So he covers himself by saying that, these reframes that I'm giving you, they may work, they may not work, they may work sometimes, they may not work another time. And that makes sense that he would do that, because they are little pithy, little blurbs that may catch you at the right time, a particular time in your life that you're going through something, and at another time that may not really be applicable. So it's a great book because you can kind of pick it up at any spot and get something out of it. It so far it's really non-stop staccato repetition of these. I wouldn't call them positive affirmations. A lot of them are positive affirmations, but they're just good, healthy reminders of how to think. Don't think negatively, think positively, but it's spoken in many different ways. And don't look at it this way. You know, that may cause you some grief, but look at it this way, and it's actually a better way to look at things. So I'm not going to go into details too much on them. I might mention a couple, but that's all I'll do for today because, as I said, I'm only on page 100. But I would like to share with you, before I go, a reframe. I would call it a reframe because I was reading Scott Adams' book, and as I was going through Mark, it made me think, hey, that's a reframe. And that is from Mark 8, verse 33. And this reframe is when Jesus is talking to Peter, and Peter says, Jesus says, who do the people say I am? You know, some people think you're John the Baptist. Some people think you're Elijah raised from the dead. And Jesus says to Peter, who do you think I am? Peter says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus says, right on, flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven revealed this truth to you. But then a moment later, Jesus tells him that he has to go up to Jerusalem and suffer at the hands and be delivered to the Romans and be put to death and so on. And Peter says, oh, far be it from you, Lord. Don't, this can't happen. Don't even talk like that, right? So here comes the reframe. At that point, Jesus turns to Peter and he says, get thee behind me, Satan, for thou mindest not the things of God, but the things of men. Now, even though he's talking to Peter, he's really speaking to the idea that's coming from Peter. And Peter is saying, you can't fulfill your mission. He doesn't know that it's his mission to suffer and die for the sake of the people, for the sake of the world, for that matter. But he's only looking at it pragmatically. He's only looking at it from, Scott Adams would probably get a kick out of Rob Ringer. Rob Ringer wrote in the same style, and he wrote a famous book called Looking Out for Number One. And he wrote a couple of books actually, but Rob Ringer was very pragmatic, and he said you got to cover your own assets, so to speak. You got to cover your own tail, make sure you do things forthrightly and practically and so on. And so Peter would have been in that same boat, the same as Scott Adams, the same as Rob Ringer. Jesus, you can't do it like that. You can't go and let yourself get taken advantage of by these people. You got to look out for number one. You got to make sure that you cover yourself, right? And what was the reply of Jesus? A very harsh reply. I mean, don't forget, this is the same guy that later on Jesus confirms his love for him 3 times. Later on, after Jesus leaves, Peter leads 3,000 people to the Lord through his preaching, right? And so this is not as if Jesus is cutting him out of his life by saying this to him, but he's identifying the source. He's talking past him in a sense and identifying the source of this danger. He says, get thee behind me, Satan. Thou mindest the things of God, and not the things of God, but the things of men. And sometimes if we only focus on the things of men, see, this only focuses on the thing of men. I don't want to be harsh on Scott Adams. He's a great intellect. He's a highly successful individual, and he would be a great mentor to have on how to get along in the world and so on. But if you only focus on the things of men, if you only focus on promoting yourself, if you only focus on things that will benefit you or only directly benefit the people you love, you're only focusing on the things of men, right? Christ said, focus on the things of God. What are the things of God? Mercy, right? Self-sacrifice, justice, turning the other cheek. These are not things that are covered in Rob Ringer's book, right? These are not things covered in Scott Adams' book. The idea of giving up your rights, that even though you are in the right, giving up your your privilege, giving up your right, giving up your position to say, you know what, even though this is, you may even say, I deserve this, right? You say, I deserve it. But the idea of charity, the idea of giving to those less fortunate than yourself, is not supported by the principles that are found within the survival of the fittest, right? They're not Darwinian principles to self-sacrifice and give yourself up for somebody else. And this is what Christ would consider the things of God. He was on a mission where he had to sacrifice himself to fulfill the mission that was given to him by God. And he was identified this barrier that came up when somebody said to him, oh no, you shouldn't let yourself be handed over to the Romans. And he identified right away this was a temptation from Satan. So poor Peter probably thought, gee, what the heck did I do wrong? When really Jesus was kind of speaking through him. And this can happen to us. Sometimes we will get information through people that are totally innocent. And people will say something and you think, oh, this is a temptation. And you have to separate yourself from it coming from the individual. So Jesus wasn't really angry at Peter. He was seeing through the message that was a temptation, that was Peter was just saying an innocent offhand comment, right? And he had his best interest at heart on top of that. Peter cared about Jesus. He didn't want him to have to be put through a torture or being, all the things he had to go through. It was horrific, right? So you get where I'm going, right? The point that I'm trying to make is that Jesus reframed that and said, sometimes you have to really look closely at the information that's coming at you. If everybody around you is saying, oh yeah, you deserve this. Oh yeah, you should put yourself first. Oh yeah, you told that other person off. You were in the right. You should do. You have to take a moment to say, wait a minute now. Am I only considering the things of men, or should I also consider the things of God? Because oftentimes they're very, very different. They're opposite to one another. The things of men will say, put yourself first. The things of men will say, you're the most important in this situation. Whereas the things of God will say, well, maybe you have to experience some self-sacrifice. You have to give up your rights and say, even though I was in the right, I'm going to give up my priority. And you give up your seat on a bus for somebody who's elderly or infirm. You say, I was here first, so I deserve to sit here. But no, you give that up. You say, you know what, here, please take my seat. This is an example of charity, an example of love, an example of self-sacrifice. These are the things of God, right? They're not the things of just survival of the fittest and putting yourself first and so on. So again, I don't want to be harsh on Scott Adams, because this is great advice on how to get along in the world, but we should balance it out with the things of God. And I would say the same about Rob Ringer's books. I don't know why they remind me of him for some reason. But that's all I wanted to share with you today, just that little snippet. And I hope that helps wherever you're at, that yes, it is important to be practical. It is important to take care of your own interests, of course. However, don't forget to think on the spirit realm, right? Think about the unseen realm. Christ said he's going to prepare a place for us, right? So this whole reality, this whole universe, they say that Andromeda is going to crash into the Milky Way, and in millions and gazillions and billions of years, everything is going to be turned into dust. And so this reality that we're experiencing will one day pass away, even as Scripture tells us it'll one day pass away. But the words of Christ will never pass away. The kingdom of God will never pass away. And this is the kingdom that we have a hope to look forward to. And for some people, they don't have that hope, because all they see is the physical realm, and they have no regard for the spiritual realm. They have no regard for the afterlife. And that is unfortunate. That's sad. And I think that if you do not have that hope, you will end up essentially sad and miserable, because how can you not be sad and miserable if you know that everything that you ever hope for, everything you ever love is all going to turn to dust? But the reason that we have a hope, the reason that we can have joy in our present circumstances, that we know that Christ has gone on ahead to prepare a place for us. We have that hope that strengthens our spirits, that allows us to experience love in a more deeper, fully meaningful way, that our love will last forever. And I thank you so much for watching. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Oh, I'm sorry it took so long, but I hope that you're able to spend time with people you love, that you're able to get out, get some fresh air wherever you are, enjoy the sunshine, and hopefully maybe able to read some good books. And I wish the best for you. So thank you so much for watching. God bless you. And I wish you well, okay? We'll talk to you again real soon. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye now.